The League of Women Voters, Champlin Women of Today, Metro North Chamber of Commerce, and the North Suburban Optimist Club welcome you to meet the candidates for those running for Minnesota House District 36A, which includes Champlin and part of Coon Rapids. Thanks to the candidates, Champlin City Hall, and QCT for making this event possible. This year, League of Women Voters, Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area, is holding our forums without an audience to avoid the spread of COVID-19. I'm Linda Rogers, co-chair of voter service for the Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area League of Women Voters, and I live in Anoka, so I can't vote for these candidates. Timing for us tonight is from the Champlin Women of Today, Wendy Humyak. Thank you, Wendy. All candidates for this race were invited to participate in the forum. The League of Women Voters does not oppose or support political candidates for office or in either political party or any political parties. I'm sure the candidates care very much who you're going to vote for, but the League does not. The League does hope that each of you simply will vote. The goal of our forums is to help citizens become informed voters. The candidates in House District 36A are Bill Marish and Zach Stevenson. We will begin with 3 questions that were provided to the candidates in advance. This will be followed by questions that have been submitted online, and candidates will alternate who answers each question first. The answers are timed, thanks to Wendy, and limited to 1 minute. And so we'll begin with Bill Marish. We'll get to know him a little bit. Describe your background and community involvement.
Well, I've been alive for 59, and I'm coming up on 60 years old, so I've been alive. I was born in Minnesota, a resident of Blaine. I went to Blaine High School, competed in sports, football, wrestling. So very competitive. Was able to wrestle for three of our USA teams and compete in the World Championships. Age group world championships. I went in the Navy for a couple of years, got out, worked hard on construction and different jobs, and ended up going back to college, getting a degree to teach health and phy-ed and driver's ed. And I've been back here in Champlin for 28 years. And, with my background as a teacher, I've been able to connect with the families. Of course, knocking on doors, you connect with families, but, just to be there with the kids and with the parents, and, that's my background.
Thank you. Zach Stevenson, describe your background and community involvement.
Well, first I want to thank you and thank the League for hosting this event. I think it's really amazing that you were able to put this together in these really difficult times. It's an important service you provide to our community. My name is Zach Stevenson, and I'm a lifelong resident of the northern suburbs. I'm a prosecutor for Hennepin County. I'm the father of 2 beautiful little girls, and I am the state representative representing Champlin and Coon Rapids in my first term. And boy, it's been an interesting couple years to have for the first term. When I first ran for this office, never thought that I'd be serving through the first global pandemic in 100 years, or the worst rioting in Minneapolis in over 50 years. But that is what has happened, and we've tried to face up to those challenges. And even though I've lived here my entire life, what I've had the privilege of seeing is the spirit of this community and how great it is and how resilient it is. And it's really made me understand my community better and even more proud and hopeful for the future.
Thank you. We'll get to know the candidates a little bit better, finding out what are your qualifications for serving as state representative for 36A, and why are you seeking the office? Starting with Zach Stevenson.
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a lifelong resident, a prosecutor, a father, and I'm also serving in office currently. And in my first term, I think we got a good start on several of the biggest problems facing our community, whether it's cracking down on the big pharmaceutical companies and establishing an emergency insulin program, or responding to the opioid epidemic, which I see every day in my job as a prosecutor. We were able to get the opioid manufacturers to pay for some of the recovery. We've also made some progress on education and getting additional resources for our schools schools up here. And even on public safety, we've made much needed progress. But there's so much work left to be done, and I'm looking forward to engaging with that and doing it.
Bill Marish, tell us a little bit about your qualifications and why you're seeking the office.
Well, qualifications, I believe that if you're a citizen of the area, you're qualified, and the government's set up to be run by the people. I think that being here and living here, a husband, a father of four, knowing the budgets that we had to set, and things, the priorities we set, being connected to the families here in Champlin through the it's coaching probably more than teaching actually, but through parent-teacher conferences and things that I'm able to relate to them. I think I as a citizen have the same frustrations and that we see out there and the problems, and I'm willing and ready to represent the people. I think I'm a good listener, and hope that discussions could be a way to progress and move to be able to agree on things and get things done.
Thanks. And Bill Marish, you'll be starting on this question. What are your short and long-term goals for Minnesota?
My goal, again, I keep going back to, I want people in Champlin and Coon Rapids, the students that I've seen, which I think has happened, and I hope it continues to happen, I want them to want to live here. I want them to love their town, their community. I want people driving through to go, yeah, Champlin, Coon Rapids, they're nice places. And then make sure our taxes are low, our regulations are removed, so they'll come back and even open businesses and develop things that attract us, that they're, and you're able to go to see, Johnson's Sporting Goods or whatever, and they're old students of yours, and you see them, so, my goal is just to make this a great place, a safe place, to always make sure our police are backed fully and funded fully, and have a good, clean, safe community.
Zach Stevenson, your short and long-term goals for Minnesota.
Well, I ran for office mostly because of my daughters. As I mentioned a while ago, I have two little daughters, and I want Minnesota to be as great a place for them as it was for me growing up here. I live a mile down the road from the house I grew up in. I always tell people I didn't get very far in life. And I think that we have a great quality of life in Minnesota and in Champlin and Coon Rapids in particular, and I want to make sure that persists generation after generation. So what does that mean we have to do? It means we need to have world-class schools in Minnesota, where everyone can get an education that's going to serve them in the coming economy. We need affordable health care. No one should have to choose between paying the mortgage and paying their prescription drugs, and we should work on that. It means protecting our state's lakes, rivers, and forests, our great statewide heritage. And it means a safe community where everyone feels safe when they call the police. That's what we deserve.
Thank you. Zach Stevenson, you discussed your goals for Minnesota's future. What is the goal you would put at the top of your list, and how could that goal be achieved?
Well, I think that the secret to Minnesota's success, the reason why we have been a great and prosperous state, is that we have a great education system. And so I think that always needs to be at the top of the list, making sure that our schools are phenomenal from beginning to end, from early education, where we know that if we get kids on the right track, that pays dividends for years and years to come, to having a rigorous K-12 education. I've said this before, but when foreign exchange students come to the United States, the number one thing they tell us is they're surprised by the lack of rigor in our schools. To higher education, whether that's going to a community college, and I've worked really hard to try and invest in Anoka Ramsey Community College, expand the business and nursing programs there, or a traditional four-year degree, or going to work in a construction or a trade where we have a labor shortage and really need people to get into those great careers. And, we need to have a world-class education system from beginning to end.
Bill Marish, what is the goal you'd put at the top of your list for Minnesota, and how could that goal be achieved?
Well, I would say strong schools is number one, so we agree. I think that it's the key, and I believe Anoka does a good job. I know that they're a great district. I think schools all have their individual, their struggles. I would like to see them to be able to be more site-based, so they recognize that Champlin Park's different than Andover, and Andover's different than Blaine, and Blaine's different than Coon Rapids, and I wish that would happen. I think that we could work towards that. I think that the rigor and the things that we do in our classroom to challenge them. What's hard right now is this virus, and we're really working hard to develop a distance learning, which is hard without relationships. I think the relationships you build with your students is so important, and it's difficult when you have a mask on and you're talking on a computer and you're not seeing each other. So, schools.
Thank you. You both see youth as a priority, so let's push on that a little more. Bill Marish, what do you see as the greatest need or challenge for youth in Minnesota? And how, as a legislator, would you help solve that issue?
That's a good question. You asked the greatest challenge?
Yes, need or challenge for youth.
Just to as they're educated, to teach students, young people, how to learn, how to research, not what to learn necessarily, but give them the tools so that they're able to, with our media situation, our social media things, that there's things out there that you look, and if you look at it and go, really? They need to know how to figure out really, because there's so much stuff going on that they need to be able to understand how to research, how to find answers, to be able to do that, and further their educations then, and really strive to find out what they're interested in. Military, hands-on, things that we talk about, college, those types of things, so that they can fulfill their own dreams.
Thank you. Zach Stevenson, what do you see as the greatest need or challenge for youth in Minnesota, and how would you help solve this issue as a legislator?
Well, I talked a minute ago about the importance of having high-quality education from the beginning all the way through, and so I won't belabor that point. What I want to take a moment to talk about is something that doesn't get talked about enough, which is the mental health crisis that we have really throughout our society, but in particular with today's youth, and that I think is exacerbated by the influence of social media and excess time staring at screens, whether it's an iPad or a TV or something else. We need to do a lot better job, because we're experiencing a real mental health crisis, and it fundamentally is the case that we don't have a mental health system the way we have a healthcare system, because it's kind of a new idea that a sickness of the mind is the same thing as a sickness of the body and needs treatment. And in my brief time in the legislature, this is an issue that I've tried to work on in a number of different ways. I think it's really important, particularly with youth. We've done some school-linked mental health grants to really try and build up our mental health care in our schools. Minnesota has the worst ratio of students to counselors in the country. That's embarrassing. We can do better, and we should do better.
Thank you. We're going to switch gears now and talk a little business. Starting with Zach Stevenson, please describe any experiences you have owning or managing a business, as well as specific advocacy efforts on behalf of the local small business community.
Well, I grew up, my parents owned a small business until 2 years ago. They retired just a couple years ago. And I know what it's like to live in a household where you're a small business. Small business owners, it isn't so much a vocation as an identity. For a lot of people, this is how the first thing they think about when they wake up. It's the last thing they think about when they go to sleep. And you're always on the edge. It's hard in the best of times, and right now, this isn't the best of times. One of the big things that I was able to do in the legislature was fight for the small businesses in our community by passing a bipartisan small business relief grant program to respond to COVID that's actually going out right now. We are trying to focus in on the small businesses that were really left behind by the big relief programs that came out of Washington, the PPP and the other things, where the well-connected insiders, people with fancy lobbyists got all the money. Well, we really tried to focus in on the really small businesses, in fact, the micro businesses with 5 employees or less. And we were able to get that bill passed with bipartisan support, only 5 votes against the program in the entire legislature, and signed into law. I'm proud of that.
Bill Marish, please describe any experiences you have owning or managing a business, as well as specific advocacy efforts on behalf of the local small business community?
I've never owned a business. My parents have never owned it. My dad was an iron worker union. I was in the same union for a while. I've been, when I was working construction, I was scabbing most of the time, and the closest experience I have is my brother, who went into business for himself. My experiences there is that taxes are tough, to lower taxes and the regulations that they went through, that he had to follow. And I think we could prioritize making our communities more friendly to be able to open businesses and be able to use their profits to continue to grow their businesses and keep more of their own hard-earned money in their pocket.
Okay, and we have a follow-up business question. Bill, for you first. If elected, then, what would you do to provide a healthy business climate?
Well, I would, I can keep repeating myself. I think right now the focus would probably be on the virus and how it's affected the small businesses, and they've taken such a brunt of what's going on, being forced to close down when they, but you got to be on the right side of things, so they're being, cautious, and they've struggled. They can't pay their rent. I know there's business things that are out there for us. I think it's really important right now we really focus on them that are struggling because of the mandatory shutdowns, help them get things going, support them so that they can get themselves up and going again and get their families back right. And
Thank you. Zach, if elected, what would you do to provide a healthy business climate?
Well, in the short run, we need to continue providing flexibility and relief to our business community. I mentioned the relief program that I was the chief author of that passed into law and is distributing money right now. But, we also have to provide more flexibility to our businesses and give them the chance to innovate and be out there. And we've been working on that, whether you see programs that have a lot of rules and strict guidelines that we've relaxed to give businesses more flexibility, because these are really unusual times. In the long run, we have to recognize what makes Minnesota business successful, what makes this a place where Earl Bakken can found Medtronic in his garage. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's education, right? We have the best trained, highly skilled workers in the world. Earl Bakken founded Medtronic off a public school education and University of Minnesota degree. We need to find the next Medtronic and continue to provide the kind of workers that are going to build a robust, diverse, and thriving economy.
Thank you. I mentioned I drove across the Mississippi River to get here tonight, and then as I was waiting for the building to open, I saw that all kinds of work is being done on the water tower just outside this building. So I'm wondering, as a legislator, what would you do to ensure we have clean air and water now and into the future? Zach Stevenson?
Well, this is a subject that is very close to my heart. I think it's really important because, all Minnesotans deserve to be able to breathe clean air and drink clean water. And that's particularly true in Minnesota. We are an outdoor state. We're a state with this wonderful lakes and rivers and forest heritage. And I've devoted a lot of my legislative energies to working on making sure that our environment is preserved for that next generation, whether it's fighting invasive species or working to save our pollinators, working to clean up the Mississippi River right in our backyard, which has agricultural runoff from the Crow, makes it a contaminated waterway, or fighting climate change, which is the biggest long-term threat to our environment. The great northern woods in Minnesota that we all treasure, they're disappearing because the climate's getting warmer, and they will be gone in my children's lifetime if we don't act, but we can act.
Thank you. Bill Marish, as a legislator, what would you do to ensure that we have clean air, water now and into the future?
I believe our science is the best in the world, and I believe that we can keep our waterways clear, keep the pristine atmosphere of the boundary waters to be able to have clean air by following our science, and we can still provide the jobs that are needed in those areas to be able to do both. I think that our safety issues, we have to make sure that we're maintaining things, that we utilize the resources that we have right now, and then prioritize and be able to focus where we need to make sure that we love our Minnesota, that we love to be outside and we love to be in the canoes and paddling and swimming and hiking and camping.
Thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about our justice system now. Bill Marish, do you think the statewide police reforms passed by the legislature this summer are moving Minnesota in the right direction? And please explain.
I'm honored to be, I was just endorsed by the Minnesota Police Peace Officer Association, and I back our police. I look at what's happening and I worry that an instance might be affecting everyone. I think that everything can always improve. Where there's injustice, we have to fix that. We're raising our arm to the square, we're marching with them. Where there's injustice, there's injustice. If there are problems as a teacher or a police force, we need to be able to make sure we can remove them. Better vetting programs, de-escalation training, whatever it might be. Maybe our unions are too strong and we can't fire a bad teacher. We have to be able to remove people that aren't there, that are doing a bad job as police. But I back those police. We know that they're great people, great workers. We know our Champlin and Coon Rapids officers. They're doing a great job.
Thank you. Do you think the statewide police reforms passed by the legislature this summer are moving Minnesota in the right direction? Zach Stevenson.
Well, I think it was a good first step to pass those bills. We did make it easier to fire police officers who break the rules. We did toughen up the standard by which police officers when they can use force. And I think those are good first steps. We toughened up the board that oversees police licensing. There's a lot of good first steps there, but clearly this is an issue that demands a lot more attention and a lot more work. Actually, I'm also endorsed by the Police Officers Association, so you have two police-endorsed candidates here, but I also recognize that we have a lot of work to do to make sure that everyone feels safe when they call the police. That's what people deserve in Minnesota, and we're not there right now. And it's not just the police, by the way. Every level of our criminal justice system, whether it's prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, juries, there's systematic bias throughout that we need to root out and work harder to make sure that it's fair for everyone.
Zach Stevenson, do you support laws that require background checks on private gun sales and red flag laws, which give law enforcement the ability to confiscate weapons from those believed to be of risk to themselves and others?
I do. As a prosecutor, I know firsthand what happens when guns get into the hands of people who should not have them under the law. Background checks and red flag laws are great tools for our law enforcement to help keep us safe. We've seen in other states that they reduce gun violence, and so I support them enthusiastically. At the same time, I want to make clear that the Supreme Court has ruled that the Second Amendment protects the right of an individual to keep and bear arms. I support that. I also think that Minnesota does not have a problem with responsible gun owners. We have a problem with criminal gun owners. And these laws, proposals, are designed to keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have them, that we probably can all agree should not have them. And so we want to respect rights, but we also want to keep people safe. That's the focus that I have.
Bill Marish, do you support laws that require background checks on private gun sales and red flag laws, which give law enforcement the ability to confiscate weapons from those believed to be of risk to themselves and to others?
I do not. I should be able to sell my gun to my son. If I want to register it and go through, we can do that. The red flag laws, there's no due process in the process to come to my house and take my guns away. Because what? Because why? You can't have people accusing somebody of something and then have no due process and be able to kick my door in and take my gun away. That's wrong. An old girl from college that says that I was mean to her, and she, these are the stories that are out there, and they're real stories. So no, I don't support that. I support the Second Amendment.
Thank you. Now we're switching gears, so to speak, or I don't know if these cars have many gears. As an elected official, would you work to support MnDOT's strategies to promote electric vehicles, including accelerate sales and use and build out charging infrastructure? And please explain, Bill Marish.
Electric cars. Well, I think that I'm a capitalist. I believe that competition, you're making a better widget, and the more people that are competing, you're getting better innovation, better inventions, everything's going to get better and cost effective. And if it can help our environment at the same time to be able to do that, so if you could incentivize that and help them to be able to develop that kind of technology, and people were interested in that, absolutely. Why I should have more choice, the more competition, the better.
Zach Stevenson, would you work to support MnDOT's strategies to promote electric vehicles?
Absolutely. I've been a leader in this at the legislature. I think that electric cars are win-win. They're cheaper for consumers to operate. They're better for the environment. They're the future that we want to be on. I need to circle back to the question about guns for a second here with the remainder of my time and just correct the record. Bill's mistaken or wrong on the red flag laws. There's a lot of due process protections in there. The situation that he described couldn't happen because an ex-girlfriend wouldn't have the ability to even seek a red flag order. It has to be initiated by law enforcement, by prosecutors and police. You know, we talk about wanting to give tools to our law enforcement to make sure they can keep us safe. This is an example of a tool that can be used to keep safe. And I just think we should be honest about what the real risks here, and it's not a lack of due process. There's more due process in the red flag law than there is in a lot of criminal justice procedures that are out there.
And this is our last question, Zach Stevenson. What do you believe to be the key elements of compromise?
Well, the number one thing is to listen. You gotta keep listening to people and hear where they're coming from and find out where are your obstacles, where do you agree? Because, you know, the media likes to slice us and dice us to make us think that we're all the way on the far left or all the way on the far right. But actually, most Minnesotans agree on most things. We all agree that we want great schools. We all agree that we want great health care and a clean environment. We can sometimes disagree about how to get there, but we have much more in common than we have apart. And if you keep that in mind, if you don't vilify your opposition, if you work to try and find that common ground, you can do it. And I can tell you that I'm an example of that because I have passed a number of bills this year with broad bipartisan support. I mentioned the small business bill that passed with 5 no votes. I passed 3 other bills unanimously over the last 2 years without a single vote against it. You can find it. It's hard work. It doesn't always get you in the newspaper, but it's the right thing to do.
Bill Marish, what do you believe to be the key elements of compromise?
You have to listen. And when I say listen, you can listen, but if your mind, listening is a skill, and it's a difficult skill, because as you say something to me, my mind is already thinking of an argument, and I didn't hear the second part, so I don't hear the clarification of a statement. And that happens, it happens all the time. You have to listen completely. It gives you a headache to do so. But as you do that, then you don't respond. Be slow in your response. Then study. Know your opponents and where they're coming from. And if you know where they're coming from, you have some empathy, some understanding. You don't want to, you have your own values, and they're strong. But together, as you talk, discuss, and debate, not shout each other down, which is happening so often, and to listen to each other, the debating is to bring us towards a solution. It should be bringing us to progress, to progressing us to a solution. And so listening, we're in agreement there. You have to listen to each other.
Thank you. And now our candidates' closing statements. We'll begin with Bill Marish.
In closing, I just, it's almost like the opening statement. I just really, I have no desire to be a career politician. I have a career. I'm a teacher. If I lose, I love what I do. I love being with my kids. I hope I can be with my kids soon and things calm down. I would like a community that's clean and safe. I would like people to want to stay here because the tax bracket's right, that the incentives to be here are right, that we have great first responders, great police officers and firefighters and our EMTs, that they're here for us, that we just, that all my students when they go off to college, they want to come back and go, yeah, I love Champlin. I want to come home. I love Coon Rapids. I want to come home. This is where I want to live and fulfill my dreams.
Thank you. Zach Stevenson, your closing statement.
Well, thank you again for hosting this event under these extraordinarily difficult situations. I appreciate the service that you're doing to our community in this really hard time. And let's be honest, 2020 has been a rough year. I saw a t-shirt the other day, it looked like an Amazon review, 1 star, 2020, 1 star, would not recommend, right? But I look forward to 2021. If I'm lucky enough to win re-election, I'll take office in 2021. And I want to look forward to a future where we are working together to make Minnesota as good for our children as it's been for us. That is the collaborative spirit that has made Minnesota a great place to live, and it's the collaborative spirit that I have tried to embody in my role as your state legislator, and that I will continue to work on every day that I'm in office.
One more big thank you to our candidates for speaking to voters about issues and for running for House District 36A. And thanks, viewers, for your interest in becoming informed voters. You'll find links to all the Meet the Candidate forums on the League of Women Voters ABC website as we move through this election season, and you'll also find them on the QCTV website. You have many options for voting this election. You can request an absentee ballot right now on the Secretary of State's website, that's mnvotes.org, or go to the ICE Arena to vote at any time after September 18th in person. If you need to register to vote or update your registration, you can do that online or when you go to vote. Make your voice heard in this general election by voting on or before November 3rd. Thank you. Stay healthy and safe.